What is your tolerance for ambiguity? So you're sitting in an interview and you get this curveball question. Your interviewer wants to know if you're comfortable with ambiguity. The question is vague, easy to misinterpret, and you're not sure exactly what your interviewer wants to hear. In this video, I'm going to share 2 example answers to this tough interview question. One for senior, leadership or management level positions, and another for junior or non-managerial positions. Now, in order to use the key elements of these answers in your own interview, you'll need to understand 4 things. 1, what is ambiguity? 2, why interviewers ask? 3, what the interviewer is looking for in your answer. And 4, why the example answers I'll share are strong, so you can use the key elements and variations in your own interview. I'm Amri Celeste, a career coach with over 10 years hiring experience, and I regularly make videos on how to help you secure the job you want, including lots of tough interview questions and answers. So if you're job hunting, like and subscribe, it really helps out this channel. So first, what is ambiguity? The quality of being open to more than one interpretation. But what about when you're asked this in an interview in the context of your approach to work? Well, it pretty much means the same. What is your tolerance level for unclear or vague situations, people, instructions, etc.? So some ambiguity examples are things like working with a particular character who tends to give vague instructions, being required to create a plan, strategy, or create things that don't have a solid outline, which means that you may not be given solid structures to work with on a regular basis. Why do interviewers ask this question? One important thing to bear in mind is that if you're asked about dealing with ambiguity or your tolerance for ambiguity in an interview, it relates to the duties or skill sets required in some way. So if your answer shows that you're at odds with a skill you need, such as the ability to tolerate ambiguity, it may affect your chances of getting an offer, especially if this happens multiple times. When interviewers ask this, they want you to show that you know how to deal with ambiguity and you're able to take the reins in an ambiguous situation, because it's a behavioral-based interview question. What you should not do. Don't say things like, I don't like ambiguity, I don't have a high tolerance for ambiguity, or even vague positive answers like, I like ambiguity, ambiguity is good. These sound obvious, but when interview nerves kick in, whether for junior or senior roles, it happens. I've heard these types of answers. So the first thing to do is to pause before you start speaking and really think about what you're about to say and ask for clarification if you need it. How to answer. You can start your answer really simple and positive with something like, my tolerance for ambiguity is high. Then back it up with a strong example. An easy way to make sure your answer covers all bases is by using the STAR interview method. If you don't know what this is, it's a structure that is commonly used by interviewers to assess candidates' answers, and it's also a great structure that you can use to make sure that your answer covers all areas. STAR stands for situation, task, action, result, and these are the areas your answer needs to cover. I'll show you how it works in the example I'm about to give you, and then afterwards we'll look at how it fits the STAR method, what the key elements are that you need to focus on, and why it's a strong answer. This first answer is for any non-managerial or junior level position. So the example is, I was asked by my manager to start sending a weekly report on complaints handling activity so they could include the results when reporting to senior directors. This was an ambiguous instruction as I wasn't sure what areas or metrics my manager wanted me to include. I wanted to use my initiative, but I also needed more information. I sent an email to my manager with a few suggested metrics on complaints, such as volume of complaints per week, how many were resolved, and how many were still outstanding at the end of the week, and asked if this is what she would want to see on a weekly basis. She added a couple of suggestions, but was happy with my recommendation overall. I felt including suggestions would demonstrate that I was able to take on an ambiguous task with a rough outline. She was pleased with my final version, and I provided this on a weekly basis. So if we look at this answer in a little bit more detail, I've listed here how it fits into the STAR interview method. So you can see the situation, which was that you needed to start sending weekly reports. The task, it was ambiguous in nature and you needed more information. The actions you took, you sent an email to your manager, and the result. So she was happy with the recommendation and you ended up providing the report on a weekly basis. And some of the elements that make this answer particularly strong is the initial action that you took. So if your manager were to ask you to start sending sending reports without clarifying details, it's an ambiguous instruction. And instead of you batting it immediately back to your manager, you've taken the initiative to start listing out some of the metrics that you think would be suitable for the type of report that she wants. So you've shown how you dealt with an ambiguous instruction in a way that doesn't give your manager more work. You've taken on the bulk of the action and then you've simply asked her for final approval. So that's one of the things that makes this answer particularly strong. So in your answer, any example that you can give that shows that you have taken on the bulk of an ambiguous task and you've really enjoyed or relished working out the small detail will be a strong answer. Now, I do want to add that you can also ask for clarification. So you can include in your answer that you initially asked for clarification if it was essential to the next steps you needed to take. But an answer that shows that you took the reins with little information, such as this one, is also very strong. If you found that first answer helpful, do click like, as it really helps out this video. And you'll be pleased to know that I have 20 more answers for you to take away and use totally free. I've created a top 20 interview answers guide. This guide is packed with answers for your job interview, including answers to tough interview questions like why should we give you the job? What is your greatest weakness and how do you handle pressure at work? I've also included an important bonus question and what you should be asking your interviewers at the end of your interview. It's free and you can get yours by clicking the link in the description below this video. So this next example answer is for senior positions such as leadership or management. Now, as someone in leadership positions, you'll know that you will likely be expected to deal with tasks or duties that include a certain amount of ambiguity on a regular basis. So you could start off by explaining this with something like, I'm very comfortable dealing with ambiguity. It's pretty much part of my day-to-day, and I've certainly developed a high tolerance for ambiguity over the years. And then you want to back it up with an answer that demonstrates that you're comfortable managing ambiguity, such as the following. A good example of this is when I started my previous role as head of HR. I was tasked with updating our HR system. My predecessor had moved on from the company, so the request was ambiguous as I had no further detail on what the main issues were, and we had a few thousand employees on the same system, which included payroll functionalities. So I knew that not only was it key to select the right system, the transition to the new system also had to be seamless. First, I spoke to several heads of department and put together a project team as I knew this project would likely take some time. By speaking to the project team and others in the organisation, I discovered that the current system was causing multiple problems and delays with payments, employee data, and there were also multiple technical issues. I asked a member of finance to join the project team so I could understand current costs, budget, and savings. Then I considered multiple alternative systems and invited companies in for pitches and presentations in order to make a final decision. Ultimately, I was able to gather all the information I needed, select a system that addressed the main issues, and was very close to the budget we set out with, which solved many of the issues. So now looking at the key elements of this answer, you can still see how it fits into the STAR interview method. You were tasked with updating the HR system. The predecessor had moved on, so the task was ambiguous as you didn't know what the main issues were and there were lots of employees on the system. You put together the project team, which was the first action. You asked a member of finance to join the team so that you understood all the costs and associated budgets. And the result was that you were ultimately able to get the information you needed and solve the issue. Now, some of the elements here that make this answer particularly strong is again the fact that you haven't batted this back to the person that has given you the task. As somebody in a senior or leadership level position, you want to show that you can identify the right people within the company and work to solve that issue. And your first step was to put together a project team. So to identify all the people with the skills in key areas that you needed and make sure that that team were able to help you in solving the issue. And you can see in the result here that you were able to find a solution that was close to the budget, which would definitely be a key win if you're starting out as a new leader or a new manager in a senior position. If any of these answers helped you, I'd love to know. Please comment below and let me know. Now that was the core of the answer. You may be asked about key learnings, takeaways, and what you might do differently next time, but that answer covers the core points. They may also ask variations of this question, such as, can you give me an example of a time when you dealt with ambiguity? Or how do you deal with ambiguity? But essentially, it's the same answer. You may just need to slightly rephrase to match the question. If you're interviewing at the moment, it's important that you're aware of the number one reason that candidates get declined, and that is lack of preparation. Interview prep covers a wide range of areas, from connecting with your interviewers to company and job research. So I also created an ultimate interview prep guide. This is a solid playbook of how to prepare for your interview in a way that leaves an impact. It has examples of top key skills that you can give, the format you should use to practice your interview, what to research and where you should be looking, and the questions you absolutely must ask in your interview. Again, it's absolutely free. I'll leave a link to that in the description below. If you haven't already, do like and subscribe and tap the notification bell so that you'll be notified when a new video is ready. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.